Mark, as time goes on, I suspect we're going to get more and more, I guess they would be policy proposals from both sides would be my guess. I saw one where Harris is proposing a 28% corporate tax rate. We'll dig into that at some point in the future. But one piece that has been getting a lot of takes from both Trump and Harris has been food prices. Trump did his press conference where he was holding up different food items at a...
All I could think about during that was that milk is spoiling. There were 3 gallons of milk.
You're wasting a bunch of milk.
That's all I could think of. Who does that?
Nonetheless, it was just probably an empty bottle of milk.
No, somebody just went out and did the shopping.
Okay, fair enough. So in any case, I don't think it's a mystery to anybody that food prices are a lot more expensive. According to the government's own data, the consumer price index for food at home is approximately 27% higher in July of 2024 compared to July of 2019. So 5 years ago, food prices were close to 30% cheaper than where they are today, and that's grocery prices.
Overall is a little less than that.
Correct. The consumer price index for that same time period is about 22.6% higher. So food prices, did go up more than overall prices, and we are all experiencing it. My question, I guess the first thing would be, hey, food prices are higher than inflation. Is there some way that we can explain that specific to food prices? And the second piece would be, let's talk about price gouging laws and what that actually means, and is there any role to play here? But I have a tough time explaining why food prices in particular are up more than prices overall.
Yeah, demand exceeding supply is the short answer. So that's a relative price. When we talk about everything else, now we included food in the everything else. The right way to do it is actually to take food out of the everything else, but that's okay. But because food went up by more, everything else went up by less than that stated figure. A little technical, but I'm just saying that's a
fair point.
Nobody thinks we're total idiots. We get that. But the point is the relative price of food compared to, shoes or whatever. That's a real price.
Gasoline,
relative
shelter, etc.
Food has gone up in a relative sense because we know everything else has gone down. Why is that? Because demand, and the short and oversimplified answer is demand has exceeded supply, and supply
more than
could
other
be constrained.
Yeah.
It could be that demand was fine, but there was a negative shock, something bad happened to supply. There's a reason they exclude food and energy from core to get at the trend in inflation.
Supply side questions could be war in Ukraine,
usually
could be
weather-related.
It could be any number of things with food driving.
This was part of the problem in the early
faster.
In the 70s, it was just one kick in the pants after the other. Like anchovies disappeared. Chickens eat anchovies. I didn't know this until I read it in an econ book, obviously. This helped push up food inflation, one of the many waves of special factors, so to speak, inflation during the 1970s. So it's more than a temporary thing if it influences expectations, works its way into wages, and creates a bad cycle.
So good examples of price gouging. When Martin Shkreli bought that AIDS drug and then jacked up the price by 1,000%. Not a whole lot of competitors in that space, not a whole lot of other drugs that can also treat the problem, and generally was described as price gouging. And I think I would agree. Is that what he served jail time for? I don't even know. But nonetheless, generally described as price gouging. When a hurricane rolls through Louisiana and certain grocery stores or convenience stores mark up the price of water by 1,000%, generally described as price gouging. Would anyone describe the price? Maybe they would. I'm genuinely asking, but would you describe anything that we've seen over the last few years in grocery prices as price gouging? Because I very much struggle with that and don't believe that's what we're seeing.
Well, people that have looked at it have observed that profit margins in, say, retail groceries are not any higher than they have been historically on average or than other industries. So they haven't grown faster than in other industries, nor are they higher than they have been historically.
And I would generally describe a higher profit margin as kind of a necessity if you're going to describe it as gouging. I would agree there.
That it should show up there.
Yeah.
I can't say that there aren't isolated instances of it. I can just say, according to the data, there's no evidence for it. And this article says economists disagree. They do not disagree. I don't know of any credible economist who says, some may say, well, it should be looked into, as they have and continue to. I know of no economist that says a price ceiling will do anything other than cause shortages, because then you get people who would pay more who can't get it. They're worse off. People who would produce more at the market clearing, so to speak, price can't do it. So you get these dead weight losses that they teach you about. You get these bunch of people on both sides, producers and consumers, who can't meet their needs. That's a loss to society. No economist, other than maybe some real fringy ones, think that price controls are a good idea. We've tried them. We've tried them in wartime. We tried them in the early 1970s. When they were removed, prices spiked. Happens every time.
It's also unclear that that's what the Harris campaign wants to do here. I will also say that they're saying that we're going to fight on price gouging, but then not really defining what that means.
It's a bad idea. This campaign is so full of bad ideas, from Trump wanting to sit on the Federal Reserve and lower interest rates so he can buy a building cheaper, to Harris wanting to impose. I don't think she has strong economic beliefs, which is ironic because her dad was a Stanford. He's a PhD and taught at Stanford. But I don't think economics interests her. She's a lawyer. So expect more silliness. You just have to pick the candidate, I think, with the least bad ideas at this point.
So the rules that she's proposing would, quote, bar companies from exploiting consumers to amass excessive profits on food and groceries. We just displayed that doesn't seem to be appearing right now, so maybe she would be giving more power to authorities to exploit or to charge that in the future, more power to the Federal Trade Commission to investigate and levy penalties. She would also try and block deals that the campaign said give big food companies the power to hike prices. So effectively saying that, hey, maybe it's monopolistic power that's to blame for higher food prices. To me, again, it's been a period of tough time for supply and a lot of demand because we all had cash in our pockets to go spend more money on food at home. We couldn't go out to dine in restaurants. That was probably impacting the demand side of the equation as well. And so I don't think it's shocking that we've seen food prices shoot up this much. Whether or not the Harris administration takes the blame for it and whether or not they have any solutions to it is another question. Quick